No, but strangely, I found a very elaborate statue of a bee with the head of a man that's located immediately west of the Home Plate Plateau. That's one of the more interesting statues that I found up on Mars. So it's odd that we would find the statue of a bee with the head of a man at this time in Earth's history on one of our neighboring planets.
Okay, let's go to the phones. Final calls here. The wild card line, Eugene, Oregon. We go. Mike, go. Hi, Mike.
Yes. Hi, George. Hi, Andrew. It sounds like you are coming across with a positive agenda. It doesn't sound to me like you have ulterior motives. And the way I look at the world, if people were allowed to be culture-free, ethical, independent, as opposed to the state of things now, the way we're degraded, poisoned, dumbed down, the world could be sustaining, even with what the population is currently, 6.5 billion people. I think about this a lot. I've thought about it a lot. And I don't think it's just a few or a few hundred megalomaniacal people destroying humanity and the planet. I think it's ancient, intergalactic, and it's also existing on and within this planet. Who or what is at the top or bottom of this unnecessary tragedy?
I don't know. That's a very broad question. You're almost asking me to resolve what the source of evil is in the world. I'd like to look at that equation in terms of asking ourselves what we can do to make a difference. I think we can all make a positive difference in the world, and all we have to do is try. When I first began my investigation and writing project regarding my childhood experiences in Project Pegasus, naturally and understandably, I was disbelieved by my old friends in Los Angeles, my siblings, because, in fact, in the case of my 4 brothers and sisters, my project experiences had been secreted even from them by my father because they didn't have a need to know what we were involved in. But now I'm looking at a situation in which people are contacting me from all over the world to encourage me in my truth campaign. So I think just in my own experience over the last decade, I've been able to experience the fact that if you dedicate yourself to a positive goal and don't give up and don't give in, you can have a positive impact, and you'll start to find other human beings actually embracing what you're trying to accomplish, and you'll be lifted forward by the buoyancy of their spiritual commitment to what you're trying to achieve. That's already happened in my life, and I'm, quite frankly, profoundly moved by it. So I think rather than asking the big picture questions of what the source of evil is in the world or whether we've been undermined by broad cosmological patterns, we should try to work on the more intermediate level of what can we do to leave the world a better place during this brief moment in time when we're alive.
Was there anything in your travels, teleportation travels, Andy, that scared the living daylights out of you?
Oh, God. Not really. There was one of the paradoxes that was occurring that definitely left a profound sadness and impression on me. Because we did do a chronovisor probe. The first chronovisor probe in Morristown, we went to the time of the dinosaurs, and I saw some immense dinosaurs, but I wasn't frightened by them. They were long-necked dinosaurs that were chomping on grass. One of the things that really horrified me and left a sense of profound sadness is they sent me to New York City around 1900 to the Five Points neighborhood of New York City that's depicted in that famous movie, Gangs of New York. And I found myself trapped in a squalid tenement for 3 days. The paradox that was occurring is when we would be placed in the holograms, the program administrators believed that we were only in for several minutes. And I was finding that once we were immersed in the hologram, we were frequently in there for days. And so one of the more terrifying aspects as a child was just fending for myself for several days while we were in these virtual realities that we had been immersed in. And in that case, I was in a tenement that was so squalid I could hardly even stand the smell of it. It was just a miserable place to be. And so I think I have a special insight now at this point to really how miserable living conditions were in certain periods of history and how lucky we are to enjoy a much better time to be alive.
We are very lucky, aren't we?
Yes. We're
Let's
very
go.
lucky.
We'll go to Brian in Oregon City, Oregon. Go ahead, Brian. You're up with us.
Hey, George. I have to be frank. I really don't believe your guest. I want to know why, if we have all this wonderful time travel technology that's so fantastic, why 9/11 wasn't, undone.
Well, that's a good question, and I respect the fact that you don't believe me, and all I can do is simply speak my truth and sort of let the chips fall where they may. I am telling the truth. 9/11 hasn't come up yet in tonight's broadcasting, so let me raise it. Project Pegasus recovered prior information about 9/11. I witnessed it personally. What it had was an 18 to 20-second film loop of one of the planes hitting one of the Twin Towers. I saw that footage. We were called down to the Aerojet Corporation facility that formerly existed at the corner of Bullock Avenue and Leroy Place in Socorro, New Mexico. Now, the reason I believe that 9/11 wasn't stopped as a result of the Defense Department having prior knowledge of it is it may have been a practical reason. That was just an intelligence finding that got dropped into files, and then people like Don Rumsfeld and others who were then in government when 9/11 occurred simply weren't even thinking about what had previously been detected by Project Pegasus about that horrific event. But in general terms, one of the reasons they decided to not change future events was because if it's a big event like 9/11 that affects a lot of people, if you prevent it from happening, you then divert the course of all of the events that occur after that event. And if you're involved in an intelligence gathering project, the purpose of which is to discern information from the past and future that you can act upon, the paradox is you can't change a future event and not diminish the quality of the intelligence database that you're gathering for events after that big event. So I believe that relative to 9/11, that the U.S. government knew that it was coming. We have evidence of that made in statements by the president, by Condoleezza Rice, and others. We have the president's statement that he saw the first plane hit the first tower. We have Condoleezza Rice's advisement to former Mayor Brown of San Francisco not to fly that day. We have the moving of Don Rumsfeld's desk to the other side of the Pentagon and other clues that they were preparing for that event on that day. I believe the reason that they let it happen is not because they're evil people, but simply because it's in the nature of quantum access that if you stop or prevent a major event in the future, you essentially diminish the intelligence value of the intelligence database you've gathered for all events occurring after that mega event. And that's what I believe happened on 9/11.
Okay, thank you. Calvin, Cincinnati, Ohio, first-time caller. Hi, Calvin, go ahead.
Hi, how you doing?
Good.
Andy, how are you today?
Good.
I've been listening to you all night. A lot of the stuff that you've been talking about, very interesting. One of the questions I had was, what's the name of your book that's coming out, and when will it be out?
The title is Once Upon a Time in Time's Stream, My Adventures in Project Pegasus at the Dawn of the Time-Space Age, and it should be out by the late spring. I have 225 passages written, and I simply have to find some quiet hours away from my professional activities as a trial lawyer to sit down and knock out the final manuscript.
Oh, very good. Let's go next to Springfield, Missouri. David, east of the Rockies. Hey, David, go ahead.
Yes, sir. George, Andrew, it's a true pleasure. And I would just like to say, Andrew, my question is, I got to say I'm a bit of a skeptic. What you're saying really intrigues me, but I've got to ask: is there something that you can tell the Coast to Coast listeners to reaffirm? Let's say, can you tell us who the next president is going to be? Can you tell us something that's going to happen in the near future? In which case, where the listeners will say just wow and be astounded, blow your mind, wow, that he's true.
Right. Well, let me answer that specific question. It came up earlier, and I just want to emphasize that there were really only a couple things about the future that I was able to glean simply by having the opportunity to sit around the dinner table, the lunch table, in a social context when I was